All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. All of this, of course, started as a one-off controversy over a Christmas party that was reportedly held at the home of the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson last year. But several weeks on, the scandal seems to have taken a life of its own. From one party under question, now there are instances of several social gatherings that flouted the COVID-19 norms that were in fact imposed by the British Prime Minister himself that have now emerged. And there are common threads that bind all of these together. The gatherings flouted the guidelines of the British government at this time, and all of this flouting seems to have been done by government officials, including the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson within his own residence. Now, Johnson on Monday defended the latest incriminating picture. The picture is on your screens. The picture was obtained by the British media, a newspaper in Britain called The Guardian, and it shows the Prime Minister and his colleagues in the 10 Downing Street garden consuming some pretty fine wine and cheese. When questioned about the event, Boris Johnson insisted that this was actually a work-related meeting. Remember, this meeting took place on the 20th of May at a time when the rest of the United Kingdom was under a very strict lockdown.
I mean, Prime Minister, there is a trust issue here. You're asking people to be cautious. They see the picture of you sitting in the Downing Street garden, drinking wine, eating cheese, at a time when, you know, those were not within the rules. They don't buy that it's a work meeting. There are people on Twitter who say they had funerals of loved ones in the same week and they couldn't have that many people at their funerals. Do you understand why people are angry and why they might be less likely to do what you say?
Those were people at work talking about work.
So you were having a work meeting there without laptops, without any notes or paper. Do you normally have wine and cheese at a work meeting?
Those were people at work. Those were meetings of people at work talking about, this is where I live and it's where I work. Those were meetings of people at work talking about work. And I really think it's vital that we focus, if we can, on the messages we're trying to get across today. We face a serious spike in Omicron. You're seeing the cases go up in London, particularly the cases of hospitalisations. And the answer is to be cautious, but also to get vaccinated.
All right, so that was an instance of the British media holding their Prime Minister to account, because the Prime Minister, after all, is a public servant holding a public office. Therefore, rules cannot be different for the common public and the Prime Minister. The photograph, of course, is the latest blow to Boris Johnson and his ruling Conservative Party. So far, there have been at least 10 gatherings and events, the details of which have emerged. All of these were held between the 13th of November and the 18th of December. Going by the guidelines set by the United Kingdom's government at the time, all these gatherings, attended by government officials and some even by the Prime Minister himself, clearly flouted the COVID-19 rules, where social gatherings and parties had been banned in London. The Prime Minister and the members of his government have so far maintained that no parties were held and no COVID rules were violated. An investigation into the alleged parties is currently underway. But as more and more details emerge pretty much on a day-to-day basis, the Prime Minister is finding himself faced with one political crisis after another. Last week on Tuesday, Boris Johnson faced the biggest parliamentary rebellion in his tenure, when close to about 100 members of his own party voted against the new restrictions that his government wanted to impose. And also last week, the Conservatives suffered a stinging by an electoral defeat in a historically safe seat held by the party for nearly about 200 years. And then on Saturday, one of his closest supporters and Brexit ally, David Frost, resigned from his cabinet, citing discomfort over the new COVID-19 rules. So what is quite clear is that the Prime Minister has lost the trust of the British public. An opinion poll published by Ipsos found that 6 out of 10 people in Britain think that it is quite likely that Boris Johnson will not be the Prime Minister by the end of 2022. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.